Hi folks, Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the mass social destruction, particularly in the West, that's caused by um, uh, divorce, but importantly, where the government gets involved in the divorce process. Now, the starting point that the entire divorce industry has is that he is the oppressor, she is the victim. So all the support services and all the intervention by the government is on the basis of supporting her against him. No matter what the flowery rhetoric may be on the brochures that you might see from councils and things like that, their job is to support her. Now, you may get some sort of independent people that where it sort of hasn't got to the divorce stage yet, but where couples are going in for counselling before things get too unpleasant, and you may find some impartiality there, but not a whole lot. The entire industry again is ideological, and they openly and brazenly employ gender studies graduates and sociology graduates and people who believe that the family is evil, believe the straight white males are all Nazis, believe that Christians are Hitler, and so on. So you get those people with that mindset, and they're the ones involved. Now, not surprisingly, when couples sort of head for the divorce or get into the divorce process, the women very quickly work out that if they bring the government into the process, that they will have a very faithful and very staunch ally on their side, and this will give them a better outcome and give him a worse outcome, and so on. Not much thought is put into this, and certainly the women I'm aware of that invited government into the divorce process, something that could have been amicably worked out between them. But when they invite the government into the process, they think that it's giving them an advantage. And especially where vengeance or something like that is an issue, or where they want to cover up some crime that they've committed, that they go into it. Now, not that every man is lily white in the divorce process. There are ebbs and flows and going to and from, and also there's very very few where you could say that all the badness is on one side and not another. But the issue is, well, we're heading for divorce. Let's have an amicable outcome. Let's create the best practical outcome we can, given the circumstances. Now, that's not something that ideological fanatics. They just don't think that way. They're there to punish the oppressor and to reward the victim, as in the ideological construct that they have. So here's a divorce. This is people that we know. I mean, it's never nice when people get divorced when you like them both, and we don't know them very very well, but well enough. And so they got divorced a while ago. So this is really how did the whole thing unfold? And I want to really in this essay illustrate the scope of the social destruction. This is really the point of this essay. What could have been an amicable arrangement ended up turning into a fucking disaster for all concerned. And none of the people in the government agencies that encouraged and facilitated and egged it on, cheered it on, none of them will be held accountable in any way. And they're still, as I understand it, out there, wreaking havoc and causing destruction at this very minute. So here's the deal. So it's a couple. He's got quite a good job. He gets paid like 5 or 6 times the average wage. She's on 1.5 times the average wage. So they're doing all right. They sort of spend quite freely, and they eat out a lot at nice restaurants, that sort of thing. But she decides at one point, she's telling my wife, this is going back a little bit now, that she's kind of gone off intimate relations. Now, these are people who had a very active sex life. They were copulating pretty much every night, and 2 or 3 times a day on weekends. So they were very active in that. No children. They were very active in that department. She decides one day that she's gone off having sexual relations, and she kind of wants a break. It's indefinite, and she doesn't know how long. Just doesn't feel like it. As far as I can tell, there were no health issues that might have explained this. Just just she decided that she sort of didn't really want to anymore. Now, beyond that, we didn't really know anything. Now, the impression certainly that I had was that she was as keen to get horizontal as he was. So it wasn't like it was just a one-way traffic thing. But she just so after about 6 months, he arranges, makes arrangements to have like a mistress on the side to satisfy his sexual urges. She believes this is effectively, an act of treachery, and he stabbed her in the back, and faith has been broken, and all this sort of stuff. And so she decides that she's going to initiate divorce proceedings. Now she's consumed with notions of vengeance, so she wants to get back at him for this. He broke faith. He mistreated me, and I don't know. The girls he was screwing, the women he was screwing, maybe they've got all sorts of diseases. And so she went down that path. He was, well, look, as soon as you want to turn on the sexual relations thing again, I'll stop doing whatever I'm doing. But I waited 6 months, and that's why should I have to wait longer than that? I thought he was a bit mercenary, and I thought she was behaving unnecessarily, but I didn't venture that opinion to either of them. Sort of listened quietly, and we get more of her story because she's talking to my wife and everything. So anyway, they. The divorce goes on. Again, she's consumed with notions of vengeance. So she contacts like the alimony people and the child support people, and or the alimony people in this case. And they've now got a child. So she wants. She's talking to the child, and she's telling us this. She contacts like the alimony people, and they really encourage her, go get that motherfucker, go get that fucking oppressor, that fucking Nazi. And so she's really encouraged to go get it. We will make sure he pays. We won't let him get away with it. He's going to try and do bad things, but we'll hold him to we'll hold his feet to the fire. And she was really encouraged by it. Like, wow, these people are real gung ho. They're into it. They'll kick his ass all the way up and down the main street and back again. And so she was very encouraged and energized by this. Wow, these people are really on my side. They're really going to teach that bum a fucking lesson. So they'll sort of carry out my fantasies of vengeance. They'll actually do it for me, and they're paid by the taxpayer. It isn't going to cost me a penny. They'll do it, and any court action will make him pay, and anything else will make him pay. He will pay. He will have to do it, and we'll do it for you. And all you have to do is sign this form. So she was like, "Wow, it's like she walked into a shop full of free chocolate bars or something." She was just, "Wow, this is so good." And I suggested that maybe is this going to work out? I mean, if these people really go after him, maybe he's not going to be very cooperative in the future. I mean, have you considered that there may be some sort of wider collateral damage issues here? Oh, I don't care. They've told me they'll get him. They've told me they won't let him get away with it. They've told me they'll make him pay, and they'll do this and they'll do that. So, okay, now because he's on a 5 or 6 times the average wage at high income, they encouraged her to go for the absolute maximum payout that they could get, which was it's about $4,000 a month as far, and then they wanted him to pay extras like school fees, things like that. And so she's triumphant. She's that's it, that fucking bum that'll really teach him, that'll show him not to fucking mess with me. And so she's absolutely over the moon by this. She perceives it as a huge achievement. Not only did she get vengeance, but someone else did it for her, didn't cost her anything, and she's getting rich in the process. So like, wow, what's not to like? So now it swings over. Because she's the victim and he's the oppressor, particularly given he's on a high income, and he's straight and he's white and he's male. So it then goes the other way. So given all the costs he has to meet, it's just over 50% of his net income. So that's his cash income after tax and welfare and social security and everything. So 50% of every dollar that goes in his pocket is being paid to her. And so he looks at it, he said, well, I can't afford to buy a house. I can't afford to, I can't afford to live my life. I can't afford to have a standard of living that's commensurate with my income. So why should I work long hours at a high stress job when, I don't get any of the benefit of it? And I'm only paying out to her because she's filled with notions of vengeance and sort of reparations payouts and this sort of thing, because she lived for years off his income, his high income, going out having a standard of living that she couldn't even dreamed of on her own income. But that doesn't count, and she now still wants that standard of living because that's what she's used to. And she's again encouraged by all these ideological fanatics in the government agencies that are jumping into the middle of the process. So he's talking to us, or primarily me, and he's saying, well, look, I can't live my life, so why should I work these long hours in this high stress job? And he works out that if he can become a victim, that suddenly the whole machinery will lurch in the other direction. So he decides to become an alcoholic, and so he's now, he can tick all the forms, and he goes to alcoholics rehab or whatever they call the thing. And so suddenly now he's the victim. He's now officially the victim, and he's got more victim points than she does, because she's a straight white female with a job. He's now an alcoholic with no job, and he's a sort of on the street and da-da-da. So now he's the victim. So she's outraged by this, because suddenly all the money dries up, and so she gets onto these agents. Say, well, go get that bum. You told me you would make sure he pays, and you would make da-da-da. And they say, well, hey, now you're the bad guy. He's now the victim, and you're the bad guy. So it's terrible of you to do these things and want these things. He's now a victim, and don't you care about him? And so he's actually worked out how to game the system. It's not gaming the system. I mean, she's gaming the system as much as he is, but he's if you like, counter gaming the system. So he's now the social or societal victim, and so he's deserved. So his the amount he has to pay her went from $4,000 plus a month to $30, not $300, not $3,000, but $30 a month. So, an irrelevant amount of money in the overall scheme of things. So she's got to drastically alter her lifestyle, because she's lost $4,000 plus a month in income. So the kids can't stay in the private school anymore, this sort of thing. Now, just rolling back, he when they were sort of going into the serious end of the divorce discussions, he said, look, this is, you can have this much of what we have, which was a reasonably generous, but I can only pay you, I'll have to now rebuild my life financially, so I can only pay you $1,200 a month, and not the 4,000 plus that she wanted. So she's no, he makes a lot of money, and again she's encouraged by it. Look how much money he makes. You make sure he fucking pays you, the damn fucking Nazi. Let's fucking get him, straight white male fucking Hitler. And so she's again encouraged to go for the full thing. Now at the time I sort of advised her, well, shouldn't you sort of try and cut a deal with him without using these government agencies, and something he's happy and prepared to live with? Because once you cross a certain threshold, he's no longer prepared to play ball, then how do you know he's just going to reliably turn up and make all this money just so you can take it from him? They told me they'll get him, they told me they'll make him pay, and no, but really in the reality of the world, in the ideological fantasy world, sure, they can say that, but in what if he decides not to cooperate? What if he decides just to quit his job and lie on the beach and smoke dope? What if he decides to do that? There's nothing they can do. What are they going to do? And then you don't get anything. So why sort of create a situation that where that outcome is likely or possible? No, they told me they'll fucking get him, and they told me they'll do this and they'll do that. And I thought, no, she's just not listening. She's so caught up in getting vengeance, that she's missing the bigger picture here. So the situation now is she gets effectively no money. He's given up on his career in effect, so he's now a productive, hardworking, go-ahead guy who's now just a liability to the system, if you will. She is too. The kids are getting not such a good deal as they would have. They only see him, every couple of months or so, and she's even trying to, stymie that, and the list just goes on of things that the whole picture's a disaster, in my view at least. But all of it unnecessarily so. She should have cut a deal with him, and that's sure. We can squeeze him for more money, but only if he plays ball. If he doesn't play ball, and if he decides to live on the street or become an alcoholic or this sort of thing and become a professional victim, then he's out of reach. You can't touch him. None of these agencies that say they're going to get him and stick it up him and they're going to go after him, none of those agencies are interested in him anymore. He's now a victim. They are being sympathetic to him. He officially meets the standard of being a victim. So they're not going to touch him. They're going to go after him. But if you'd been a little bit more modest in what you wanted, he'd still be working. You'd still be getting the money. Everybody would be happy. That type of stuff. So she made the mistake of going down the vengeance path. But the real crunch came when she went to these government aid, the alimony people and so on, that talk in this firebrand feminist language. We'll get him and we'll figure, we'll show him, and then you get off on that, and you go into their fantasy world of vengeance and ideological. Let's kill all straight white men, and this sort of thing. And so the government agencies that should have said, well, hey, hold on a minute, let's just look at this. Let's try and work something out that works for everybody. Instead, they had no intention of doing that. Their only intention was to get him into get him to pay and that sort of hysteria is what put it off the rails. So now I think the economy's lost, the children have lost, both parties have lost out. Nobody has gained, and no one has come out on top or ahead here. She's sort of has even now she sort of has a slight gloating that he's on the street and penniless, and she's got a slight gloating over that, which is a little bit unseemly. But even now, even now, she's realizing that, wow, maybe I should have done it differently. She's trying to put a brave face on it of, well, I don't care, and it is what it is, and what's happened is what happened. That she's trying to put a brave face on. But the reality is that this is the worst possible outcome imaginable, and something that no sane person would entertain or desire. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.